Hi, welcome to Ethereal Mechanics video number 38. This video is on mass murder. This is going to get a little mathy. Hi, my name is Robert Distinti. I'm an electrical engineer with over 30 years experience. If you want to see what Ethereal Mechanics is, please go to the trailer video, which is video number 0, and that'll give you an overview of where we're going with this. Anyway, in this video, we're going to continue the discussion of video 12, which was called the mass paradox. In this video, I'm going to argue that the concept of mass has been far too confused, and it's not of any value to go further, and it should be jettisoned. Okay, in video 15, it was demonstrated that the mass, when they developed mass, it was supposed to be a measure of the quantity of matter. But over the years, it became inextricably linked to the inertia of an object, F equals mass times acceleration, where m, in this case, it represents the inertia of the body, which has been all this time been proportional to the mass, but I'm going to show you that's not going to be the case much longer, especially if you saw the last video. Okay, from the last video, we saw that inertia is an electronic state of matter which can be changed without actually changing the quantity of protons. And protons are the actual matter. So mass can no longer be trusted because the quantity of something is typically measured with a scale, which is something in a gravitational field. Then mass, as a measure of quantity, can no longer be trusted at the precursory echelon of matter. Okay, but it's worse because Albert and the quantum grease monkeys made things worse. Because the quantum grease monkeys kind of realized that mass was a little ambiguous. Let me talk about Albert first. Because Albert made things worse because you can ask the question, is mass a quantity or inertia here? What are we comparing energy to? Are we comparing it to a mass or an inertia? And I'm going to show you this should be inertia, not mass. And the quantum grease monkeys kind of had figured this issue out. But what they did was they tried to obscure mass, because if you take E equals mc squared and you divide both sides by c squared, you get a relation of mass that's E equal over c squared is equal to. And so they tried substituting that as if that somehow made things better. But they obscure it by saying million of electron volts per c squared. So I'm sorry, mass by any other name is still mass. Okay, in spite of relativity stating that energy and mass are interchangeable, okay, quantum mechanics still considers particles of different masses to be unique. And we showed in the previous video, if we just change the diameter between the two protons, we can get a very different mass. Okay, and that's what we're showing here. New electromagnetism model for the electron. And we showed that if you have a diameter of the circulation of 2.8 times 10 to the minus 15, you get a mass equivalent to an electron. But if I reduce that diameter by almost a factor of 100, it's probably a little more like 200, then I end up with a mass of 105.7 million electron volts per c squared. And if I drop that diameter of circulation down to 8.1 times 10 to the 19 meters, I get 1.77 billion electron volts per c squared. So in ethereal mechanics, these are not separate particles. They're just the same particle with different states. Okay, but it's not really mass anymore. It's inertia, not mass. This is electromagnetic induction, not the quantity of the particles. The two protons that make up these electrons have not changed. The quantity has not changed. It's only the state, the relationship between them. So inertia and mass are two separate things in ethereal mechanics. And this is more satisfying, because now when we interpret the particle accelerator collisions, we can be assured that the quantity of protons involved in the collision do not change. Matter is conserved, just like the gold watch example. What does change is the electrical energy stored in the electromagnetic fields, later to be called protonic fields or pretonic fields. So what we realize is that inertia is a function of new induction. And if we can't call this since its energy is not related to mass, it's related to inertia, then E equals mc squared goes bye-bye. It should be E equals IC squared. Okay, but this new understanding simply means that a change in energy results in a change in electromagnetic field. So energy is energy. It's not goofy like it was before, where energy and mass, the quantity of stuff changed. That never made any sense to me. How can you get more stuff just appearing out of nowhere if you bash two things together? That didn't make any sense to me. Now it makes more sense, because it's just, you bash two things together, all you're doing is changing the state of the relations of the pretons, and therefore you can convert energy into inertia, because inertia is just a state of the electromagnetic fields. And therefore inertia and energy are intricately related, which is a lot easier to deal with on a lot of different levels. Okay, now that we've removed the hocus pocus voodoo, electrical engineers now own the whole ball of wax. So let's not screw this up like Albert and the Grease Monkeys. But I have to apologize. There will be none of the direct matter to energy devices from Star Trek, like a transporter or holodeck or replicators. Though, just because we can't do it that way doesn't mean there isn't another way to do things. Like, for example, a 3D printer that prints from a reservoir of pretons should become a viable replicator. And I think if you could find a vessel the size of a AA battery that could shield ether, and then you could store pretons in it in their unactivated state, you could store enough pretons in a AA battery that allow you to replicate something the size of a World War II battleship, or probably bigger. I hadn't really done the calculation. Anyway, these images were found on Wikipedia. I hope I'm not offending anybody by using them. Okay, but we're still not done here. Energy still has mass in it. Energy is still mass times acceleration. So now we got to replace the mass in acceleration, in energy, sorry. And now as we go down the rabbit hole, now we have to say, well, force now is not mass times acceleration, it's minus the inertia times acceleration. Like we said in one of the previous videos, when you go and accelerate an object, okay, you don't feel a force until it reacts to you. And there's a slight imperceptible delay. There has to be a delay, otherwise matter would be unstable. Okay, and potential energy is IGH, and we'll be getting, like we said before, we'll be getting rid of G anyway. These are all going to be gateway models. Potential energy is 1/2 inertia times velocity squared, and E is equal to IC squared now. Now, Ethereal Mechanics owns this now, not Uncle Albert, because this is the proper way to do this. Okay, only in the field of chemistry is mass use property, where mass is used to reference a quantity of material, not its inertia. Okay, but we still have a problem. The new electromagnetism models relate charge, position, velocity, and acceleration to force. Force is mass times acceleration. So we still have force. Yeah. So you put a force on an inertialess object. So that's why we can't use new electromagnetism with pretons, because pretons are inertialess. So what does a force on an inertialess object even mean? So new electromagnetism is of very little use when we get to pretons. Now, a normal question somebody may ask is, well, if new electromagnetism is of little use, then how did you develop the models for electron and proton from inertialess particles, because they are pretons? That's an excellent question. It turns out that in these particular cases, the sum of the forces equaled 0, and therefore the solution was valid. And then what we learned from this is that, to use a metaphor, as there are certain conditions under which our gateway models will open to allow us to see further, but we got to be careful about what we interpret. Okay, we might get gibberish too. So that's, we got to be careful and use the rules of acquisition to make sure what we're looking at makes sense. And then we should also confirm it with other different gateway models to make sure, as we're going down deeper and deeper into Mother Nature, that things start make sense, and that we're not getting ourselves all wrapped around the axle like quantum mechanics or relativity. So what does ethereal mechanics need? We need a precursory definition We need a precursory definition of energy which is decoupled from inertia. We need field models that resolve to something other than force or energy, both of which require inertia. And that's where the pretonic field equations are going. Or that's where we're going to end up. So as a measure of goodness from these new models and definitions, one should be able to derive. In other words, once we get there, we need to verify them by being able to derive everything that we did previously. And that includes, all the new electromagnetism models, the properties that we were able to show of the electron and the proton, and even all of the cosmology stuff that we did before using the electrical analog for the ether. And this will end up, hopefully, in a theory of everything. Okay, so say goodbye. Relativity and quantum mechanics are not viable gateway models because of their intrinsic dependence on mass, for which neither have an explanation for. For quantum mechanics, it's a intrinsic property of matter. In Ethereal mechanics, it's a state of matter. And relativity has no definition of mass either. So these guys are out to lunch. They are not viable. Thank you. No more voodoo physics. Try to get the word out. Please donate if you can. I really appreciate it. And subscribe, then you'll get the videos when they come out. If you don't know, my name is Robert Smith. I'm an electrical engineer with 30 years experience. Go to video number 000, which is the channel trailer if you want to learn more about Ethereal mechanics. Thank you.